Oh, thanks so much, everybody, for coming. What a time. I was at a Bulgarian wedding in Chicago last night, believe it or not. And made it back for our friend Boyko Dimitrov. So it was a wonderful evening. So I'm a little tired, but very, very happy to be here. We're celebrating David Fisher's new book, I Hear Always the Dogs on the Hospital Roof. And this is the first William Meredith Award for Poetry. In my introduction, I say, this is an award that has no application process, but comes to the author unsolicited in the spirit of generosity that informed William's interaction with the world of poetry when he judged competitions and supported new talent. The first book we envision publishing will be that of David Fisher, a poet William first invited to the Library of Congress and who won the William Carlos Williams Award. Stella Monday is here this evening, and she did the photographs of this in this book. And she was the editor of that book. The publisher. William Carlos Williams Award for the best book published in 1978. For decades, David has continued to write remarkable work despite multiple hospitalizations and family tragedies such as the death of his children. He's a remarkable spirit, fully matching Williams, who struggled for 25 years to come back from a stroke and return to some kind of normalcy in his life and continue to write poems. He is a hero of large dimension, a poet of great tenderness, power, and imagination. So that's David, who you just heard, and this is a new and collected. It has 7 books in it, and so that's the first item of business. In National Poetry Month, which ends at the end of this month, we also managed to publish this remarkable new edition in French and English, which John Harazik's family very kindly supported. There's a wonderful artist named Suki Monicon, who William and I met in Paris in the year 2000. She died a month ago, and these are her seragraphs. They are presently on exhibit at the Von Schlippi Gallery at Avery Point. I really encourage you to see them. They're wonderful. These were shown at the Lyman Allen Museum at one point as well. I'd like to recognize George Willauer and Cynthia Willauer, who were here, had a long-standing connection with the Lyman Allen. This is one of my favorites here. So these books are for sale, and we're very pleased to have them. And anybody that buys either David's book or this book will receive a free copy of The Wreck of the Thresher, which was a book published by the Mystic Seaport in honor of William's 85th birthday. Here he is flying. He's playing in World War II. They have a lot of archival photographs that they've put into this book as well. It's a very good selection of William's poems. I think it's really a very, very good collection. And then in the back, it's a journal where you can write your own poems. I feel like a used car salesman. But there it is. That's what we're here. And finally, we've taken a cue from the Paul Newman Foundation, which makes pasta and salsa and all these sort of things to help support their work. All the profits from the net profits from the sale of this wine goes to the William Meredith Foundation. And we're going to continue to publish books, have art exhibitions, and with luck bring a resident fellow or two to our home in River Run in Uncasville, which has become a state landmark in the state of Connecticut with George Muller's particular help. George went and spoke for us to the state that afternoon, and we managed to have this one. So it's a 501c3 organization, and any contributions that you make are tax deductible.
Excuse me, Richard, if I could ask you to say a few words what we're doing with the Thresher book with the high schools.
I really am a used car salesman.
Twist my arm.
Was they published this beautiful book. It did pretty well, but there were a lot of copies left. and they were going to remainder them. That didn't mean that they were going to destroy them. They were going to sell them to another company to sell them cheaper and so forth. And I contacted the new gentleman, Mr. White, the head of the Mystic Seaport, and I said, why don't you give them to us? So he did. So these books we've given away 22 cartons of 24 each so far to the local high schools here. And John Razik, who's a member of our board of directors, came up with the idea. And what we're doing is we're giving the copies. Well, John, do you want to say a quick word about how this is, your vision of this and how it worked? And he got me up at 9 in the morning any number of times recently, which is for me, to go to these high schools and meet the principals of the high schools and English departments and so forth.
In 1970, I became William Meredith's 190 SL Mercedes mechanic for many years. I taught auto shop at Richard High School for 34 years. And fell in love with the man's writing and his vision. My idea was to give a case of these, case of 24, to every high school in southeast Connecticut.
And some colleges, including
Yes.
Connecticut colleges.
Yes. And the purpose of which, the last half, the journal portion of the books, where students could write about the poems they'd read of Williams, and then pass them around in the classroom so that other students can read what other students were saying and feeling about Williams' poetry. It's kind of a poetry blog, if you will. And these books are not to be taken home, they're kept in the classroom. And each following year, new students can read what other students have read about Williams' poetry. It's never been done before, and rather than trash these books, it was wonderful. I borrowed my daughter's big Dodge Ram truck, and Montville Hardware was gracious enough to store them in their cellar at no charge for us. So it's a continuing work in progress, and it's been certainly well received.
I've seen perhaps in the newspapers. Michael, could I have a copy of the Revenant there? I was in Ireland the summer that William died. We were to have gone to the Heinrich Böll house together, and hard decision what to do. But I went, and I produced this book of elegies for William, and I'd like to read one of them to you to kind of introduce you to David. After he won that wonderful award in 1978, he promptly developed schizophrenia, which that's about the period in your 20s when this develops. And so he's had a really tough time. And you'll see this in one of his next book, was called The Book of Madness. And so we're really pleased that he has continued to write poetry, to produce these beautiful surrealistic poems, Rambo. And so this is called Solitary Confinement. And there's an epigraph which is from a letter that William wrote me in September of 1980. Thinking how hard it is when you first go back to work, I write this line in the early morning before I go off to a round of freshman English to remind us both that we are often, if not quite always, together in one another's consciousness. This is a steady joy and strength to me, and even though you know that very well, it's a satisfaction to sit in my vast, chilly bedroom here in a westernmost state and write it down. How interesting our lives are, and how much their significance lies in the pattern we weave between them. I am yours, dear brother, always, William. And the poem begins. That is how it's in Ireland. How did the poet put it? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? There's nothing outside the universe, a physicist would tell you, but it seems at last you have fallen off, my dear, leaving me with the loneliness you thought to take with you. I'm all set up now at Heinrich Böll's cottage, ready to work. I've scones and jam and butter and tea from India. Outside my window, beyond a curtain of red tears and a field of purple thistle, the Atlantic dreams on under the mountains of Akko, which have disappeared in the mist. But I could as easily be rooming with poor David Fisher, locked in isolation, dueling with Lucifer, a tragic Armageddon raging in his schizophrenic soul. Real toads, real garden, real snakes, real scorpions, the works that no amount of Haldol or electroconvulsive therapy will dispel. Listening to the labial cry of the wolves, sleeping through winters of dawn and blue fish. I want to shake him. Wake up, David. Oh, wake up, buddy. Let your terrors disappear like mist rising off the mountains. Let's break out of here, honey. Let's take the stones from our chest and drive up to Big Sur. But I'm locked in a vast chilly bed, waiting to hear your voice again. Your consciousness permeates my own like the air in my lungs, the last breath I took from you when I kissed you goodbye. But why can't I hear your voice again, William? Why can't I hear your voice again? So these are elegies for William. By way of introduction, so he calls me his roomie now.
Yeah.
And I got a letter from W.S. Merwin. David was really hot to have Merwin write a blurb for him, and so we had to use the one that Merwin had already done. I mean, he's got Ken Kesey, and it just goes on and on with people who have written for his previous works. Merwin was not able to do it, but he wrote me, he said, you know, David's written me 60 letters asking me to write a blurb for that, and I can't do it, but anyway, let's see. Grace Cavallari is a wonderful poet from Washington, D.C., who's written an introduction to this book. And she writes in her introduction, I don't know if these poems reveal or invent. I don't know if there are 100 Davids working behind the scenes in service of the incontrovertible truths he finds. I don't know what demons insisted that David work like this, a tortured and gifted mind, which kindles the operatic in fairy stories, treatises, religiosities, all those irresistible tales unlike any you've met before. This book, every page, takes issue with the barbarity of the world and all that is holy. So that's Gracie's. I'm a little warm. Divest. And English teachers really like it because you can really see the metaphors and it really becomes very clear. You know, it's a very good teaching device. And I like it because in saying at R.J. Julia where we did a reading, we're all in control of something. Something controls our genes, our social status, our wealth. And the irony here is I think that David's in control of other, being controlled by other forces like this bear. This is the bear. I should say too that there are wonderful art throughout this book produced by Rita Dollett. She's across the street manning the art.
She'll be here shortly.
She'll be
here shortly.
She'll be here. These are, she gave us 23 paintings to include in this book, which was really very generous of her. So this is the bear.
I was told by a mutual friend of David's, we were talking about how English teachers like that, he told me the bear was used in the SAT.
The SAT is interesting, yes.
As an essay question.
Right. The bear. Let's see. Are we all set there?
Yep.
Thrown from the boxcar of the train, the bear rolls over and over. He sits up, rubbing his nose. This must be some mistake. There's no audience here. He shambles off through the woods. The forest is veined with trails. He does not know which to follow. The wind is rising. Maple leaves turn up their silver undersides in agony. There is a smell in the air, and the lightning strikes. He climbs a tree to escape. The rain pours down. The bear is blue as a gull. There's not much to eat in the forest, only berries and some small, delicious animals that live in a mound and bite your nose. The bear moves sideways through a broom straw field. He sees the hunters from the corner of his eye and is sure they have come to take him back, to welcome them, Though there is no calliope, he does his somersaults and juggles a fallen log, and something tears through his shoulder. He shambles away in the forest and cries. Do they not know who he is? After a while, he learns to fish, to find the deep pool waiting for the silver trout. He learns to keep his paw up for the spider webs. There's only one large animal with trees on its head that he cannot scare. At last, he is content to be alone in the forest, though sometimes he finds a clearing and solemnly does his tricks, though no one sees. David's doing his tricks, continuing to do his tricks. I think it was Hayden Carruth who said that David has the largest vocabulary of anybody in the world. And you'll see that in his, he has very strange tones in the different poems. I'll read one called, he has a whole series of The Bishop. The Bishop speaks of an architectural art. I walked sad avenues of emerald and grain. I wore phylacteries of silver and blood. I slept through winters of dawn and bluefish, days lonely as months, months sad as a year. From trees of serpentine and quartz I heard the labial cry of the wolves. In the nuptial eclogue of sapphire, the air was a cold, transparent blue. The sulphurous birds of grim visage flew round churches of olives and stars. Pseudox as the nearest opinion of God, a reticulum of believers in light. Sorrow was embedded in the frog of a hoof, grief in the ictus of time. The repose of senescence by some brief fire, the storm-like worship of prevenient saviors in the devoutness of the prevailing schism. Your retrogravure that the wind transverses is a locket for Pericles, not the 1,000 rulers who lie, dissimulate executions, and preside over the cataclysm of states. A small bull pauses in the runway of the stars. A wave come in like a ciborium of blue bees, slender food for an architectural heart. No idea what that poem means. I'm so glad he wrote it. And then there's, where are these little poems? Talking about the different tones of his poems. This is called The 10-Year-Old Atheists. Tenure. It is Sunday, after church. It is hot. There's nothing to do. For a while we listen to the buzzing of the transformer station and I throw rocks. My brother almost steps on a snake, with the little tail of a field mouse in its mouth. We are headed toward the spring, but first we go up to the graveyard on the hill and kick 2 bunches of flowers around. The lizards are blue in the hot, thick weeds. My brother is hopping on one foot, smashing mushrooms on the floor of the woods. We are going to foul the spring, but it's just too hot, so we head home. I stomp a puffball. Clouds of brown smoke rise.
We've all been there.
Yeah, right. This is called Life of, and it's must be a Mexican god. T-L-A-L-O-C. The rainbow. This is a kind of prose poem. Mandy and I drove to Mexico City once, where the Casero cabs drive back and forth all the way to the military museum, past Angelito for a peso, all the way to the Museo de la Antropología, where we bought a tapestry in many colors of the Aztec calendar stone, like the Rosetta Stone, a key to the Mayan and other languages for our bed. We also visited the kennels of Diego Rivera and his wife Frida Kahlo, that my daughter likes so much, where they raised the little black dog, the symbol of Mexican freedom, which has a black hide like a hippopotamus and just a little black hair on the top of his head, and we bought one. It shook like a leaf. When he reached our backyard in Berkeley, he must have stood on a stepladder to mate with Sam, our German shepherd, which resembled a Shiatsu mating with a Doberman, with wonderful results. We have 11 dogs to place. The great socialists and communists of Mexico have frescoes all over Mexico City. The bull ring, the university, the hotels, town hall, and we cared for Tlaloc and his offspring. Years later, a giant image of him stood watch over me at night when I was homeless on the shores and deserts of Mexico looking for a lost son. I'll read just a couple from this one period. It's called Electroshock. Oh, rubber mouthpiece, oh, tremor that brails my heart, the frail gymnastics of my jiggling limbs. Desire, the tiger, rolls in the flame of the cord. I lie on many hills, the doors swing open, birds are screaming, history is mercifully lost, and fresh headlamps have come to comb my wall. I won't belabor this. I'm looking at the one above. It's called I Cut My Throat with a Downward Motion. Which, and I'm not going to read too many because we're going to have this wine. We're going to be out on the terrace there. We're going to taste it. Anybody who wants to buy it can buy it. It's available online. There's information there on how to buy it if you wish. This is the poem that David wrote for William. Love, you will never die. I haven't seen David in 35 years, I guess. We were at the AWP convention when William won the Pulitzer Prize, and it was serendipitous. He won it when we were winging there, and when we arrived, he was to be the guest, the keynote awardee at the AWP conference in San Francisco, and we didn't know that he had won it. And when we got there, the reporters told us that, and so the whole conference was taken with the idea that their honoree had just won the thing. And David came with a whole group of hooligans you wouldn't believe how they So our room became a kind of a free-floating press room and so forth. And these were wild characters, let me tell you. So I haven't seen him since then. Love, you will never die. Love, you will never die. Hear these words which come burning from me, and which no one would have said if I had not said them. I am he who awaits you in the starry night, he who under the bleeding sun awaits you. I see fall the fruits of the somber earth, I see the drops of fallen rain dance on the cockpit. In the night, at the mirror perfume of roses, when the round of immense shadows dance on the wing under the sky of the south, he who awaits you when the air of evening is like a full kiss. Love, you will never die. I am he who cuts short the rebellions of the body by the savage, fragrant milk of sun and forest. He who bears in his arms your blue tears and crumpled roses and torn bougainvillea. He who crosses his arms to await you now. He who holds position. He whom you helped awaken. He who on his lips keeps the savor of time. We are coldly rooted, icicles of a blue weight. He who calls you from broken fields. I am he who in the hour of dawn has called you. The air of the evening symbolizes high clouds. Ebriate by heart, under God we tumble. The unused river breaks into tears at times, and your voice softens and becomes tremulous. Sheathe yourself, tardy one, in a green acorn of water. Love, you will never die. I am he who awaits you in the starry night, beneath gold branches, under ruby eras, he who cuts laurels for your milk and roses, tiny among the tall trees. I am what you hoped. Lovely recognition comes to Joni DiMartino, other than David, of course, who has worked wonderful magic to make this beautiful book. Joni sat for months typing letters, manuscripts, other books, and so forth. Joni DiMartino is a fine poet in her own right, and she'd like to read 3 of William's poems to you that are particular favorites of hers, as she was getting to know David's work in the
Yes, in the whole process.
Detail, right.
Thank you, Richard. I want to thank the Courtyard Gallery, Fran, Kristen, and Del for hosting here today. I also want to thank Michael Leonard and his wife Tamara from Little Red Tree Press Publishing for getting me involved in this project. I've also published with them, and they're just wonderful people to work with. And in particular, the William Meredith Foundation for launching this and having the vision to make it happen. And I firmly believe in kind of recognition of William, that anytime I read for the Meredith Foundation, I should open with a poem from William. So if you would indulge me here. Absolutely, of course. And I just want to point out very, very briefly, I feel a little bit of a connection to this poem right now because this past week my dad, who's been ferreting around in some genealogy, found my great-grandfather's draft card from 1942, and he signed it his Mark. And when I pointed out that I found it profound that my great-grandfather was illiterate, my dad's a little miffed at me now because he's insisted I'm now saying my great-grandfather is stupid. That's not what I'm saying at all. So this poem is called The Illiterate. Touching your goodness, I am like a man who turns a letter over in his hand, and you might think this was because the hand was unfamiliar, but truth is, the man has never had a letter from anyone, and now he is both afraid of what it means and ashamed because he has no other means to find out what it says than to ask someone. His uncle could have left the farm to him, or his parents died before he sent word, or the dark girl changed and want him for beloved. Afraid and letter proud, he keeps it with him. What would you call his feeling for the words that keep him rich and orphaned and beloved? William Meredith. And as Richard will tell you, I spend a lot of time with David's work, and I could have read the whole book to you here today. I spent a lot of time with all of these poems, and I feel a very deep connection to his work. And for those of you exploring this book for the first time, you are really in for a treat. This is just a profound collection. One of my favorite sections was called the Homage to Pablo Neruda, who is a Spanish poet. And he kind of based the idea of homages, and so each of these poems are in honor of somebody else. And this one here is Still Life of a Market. It's an homage to George Hitchcock. Careful wounding the fishes, already in full moon, between the betrayals of individual reeds and the hook through the hand of the fallible fisherman. We also believe in immortality. Careful wounding the birds. Don't wound those plumes that could come through the island of fire to serve you. The flight that you also, your own little heart, proposes. Careful of the color of oranges. The poor potato in his envelope knows the essential odor of lying. Attention to the little green pressured lettuce. Attention to the cucumbers of the market, which come from a different blacksmith. Now lawyer, now fish, in a century of tremendous equality. They will know us. Careful with the cheese. It did not come here solely to sell itself. It came to show the gift-making compact with innocence, the maternal treasure of its geology. Because if the chickens cross hand to hand and disappear, the human petition is not only cruel, it affirms the law of the stars. Because if tomato laughs with all its lips and abounds, dismaying the order of tasty flesh, the vertical light enters signaling the nude, actual tomato worker. Careful with the artichokes. They are the forgetfulness of war. They are the casks of wine, always belligerent, stem and branch, never for enemies disarmed. I stop here, market, until tomorrow. I'm going to read one more poem, and the last poem I'll finish up with is the title poem for the book. This one that I'm reading now is called Norwegian Freighter, North Sea, and I believe it's one of the newest published in the book. It's one of the newer ones that has not appeared in other collections. And these were the ones that I felt very, very close to David, because I was typing straight from his handwriting, and that was just a lovely experience to have. An empty ship slides out to the Rotterdam locks, her running lights red and green. There are warm Sunday watches, the fine spume of grapefruit peel in the galley sunlight. We head north. From Rotterdam, we carry stowaways, fugitive seeds of ginkgo, ailanthus, paper mulberry, emigrants seeking homes. The seeds lie naked on the deck, helplessly germinating as the frozen sea crashes over. It is snowing. We arrive with Dublin. The empty ship reels in the sea. Oh, green sky at play on the sea. Oh, rainbowed Harlequin glacier. The sky is seen smoking. The sea offers nothing but splendor and low-cost housing. Hoarfrost builds on the rigging, hoarse full of dark bones. A snow goose falls on the deck as though pulled by a string. By the sad, extinguished sun, we are bound for Belle Isle. Drink and tobacco are free. The afterdeck is a Bowery. In the dark, the liquor stuns our visions. The ABs do stoop work. They offer salvation from salt. And between decks, it is worse. Savage jangling in the engine room, the filthy cotton batting, and, snocker de English, the Wednesday John Wayne movie. It is cold. We are howling. The crystals form on our fur. The snow is like some awful clarity. In our milky paperweight, we pass over cold Atlantis. Ancient dreams emerge from the sea. Someone is dreaming of a hooked galley plow, of a fly on a stream, of a sweetheart's annular face, of a milk snake's lace of bones. We are surrounded by maps, by the treacherous isobars. Evenings, we bet on where the stars land. The first mate tightens the moon with a skate kink. In a snow slide off the stack, the cook disappears. Above us, our captain, suspended by a thread from the silver Juno. Angry dream riffs echo among her angels. And the title poem, I Hear Always the Dogs on the Hospital Roof. I hear always the dogs on the hospital roof, the beautiful childless dogs who are infected, who are made to drink alcohol, who are reduced to terror and slow death on the hospital roof. I hear always the little cries of mice allowed to drown, to see how long it will take them. I hear always the muffled shrieks of the monkey that dies in agony 6 hours after it wakes to find itself wearing the grafted head of its mate. Say you have been in pain. Say you have lived in pain. Say you expect to die in pain. Will you agree to have your pain relieved? Will you agree to live an extra 14 days at the expense of these? I hear always the dogs on the hospital roof, little animals blaming no one, asking only that they be kept a little warm as they die.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much. I really We're trying to be okay. We have started a little late, but we must have 45 minutes is like the max you can really expect people to listen to poetry and, and to appreciate it, because you have to absorb it. But I would like to read a couple more from this book, this French-English edition, and Johnny, perhaps you read the Tree Marriage. I think that would be a good one to read.
Sounds very French.
In French.
So, it sounds very like marrying a tree.
I mention it because David Medasic is here, and David did the wonderful photographs of these beautiful images. It's not easy to get
There's
to
David,
such
right here.
perfection. Right. And
Stand up, David. Take a bow. Hey, he waved his hand. That's good enough.
it's really been a remarkable kind of combination of cultural institutions in this community that have made this happen, so it's including the Von Schlippe and David and Courtyard. It's great. I'll read it first, and I sometimes sing it. What do you think, John? Would it be okay?
I'm sorry?
To sing it?
Oh, sing.
Oh, yes, we.
People may have heard this in the past, but
We.
William, when he had his birthday, there was a group of 7 composers who had won the Pulitzer, and we did a Happy Birthday, Mr. Meredith, and we took this concert tour around the country, and it wound up in Bulgaria on the Black Sea. And this is by David Leisner, the music, and it wasn't in the, but this is David's work. It's called Tree Marriage. In Coconutpur and Bengal, the betrothed are tied with threads to mango trees. They marry the trees, and the 2 trees marry each other. Could we do that sometime with oaks or beeches? This gossamer we hold each other with. This web of love and habit is not enough. In mistrust of healthier ties, I would like tree siblings for us, standing together somewhere, 2 trees married within us lightly, their fingers barely touching in sleep, our threads invisible but holding.
Don't worry, I won't sing.
Mariage d'arbres. À Chotanagpur et au Bengale, on attache les mariés par des fils à des manguiers. Ils épousent les arbres en même temps qu'ils se marient. Pourrions-nous faire cela un jour avec des chênes ou des êtres? Ce fil de la Vierge par lequel nous sommes reliés, cette toile tissée d'amour et d'habitude n'est pas suffisante. Me méfiant de liens plus pesants, j'aimerais que les arbres, nos jumeaux, debout, côte à côte, quelque part, 2 arbres soient mariés avec nous, avec légèreté, leurs doigts se touchant à peine dans leur sommeil, attachés par des liens invisibles, mais solides.
Johnny was a very big help with the translations of these poems. And, I'm going to finish with a very small, short images poem that's put on the back here. It's called The Boxcar. A boxcar rolled through the night. It slowed and stopped. There were whispering noises as the spiders rolled back the doors. The low moon passed through the open car like a spear. The spiders descending were like a blue Afghan under the moon. So thank you so much. We're going to open some of this beautiful wine. You can get it online. Let's go to WilliamMeredithFoundation.org, and it's right there. You just click. You can order it, and so there's that. And as I said, if you wish to purchase either David's book or Crossing Over, we'll be happy to present a free copy of this journal to you. Thank you, Kristen.
Oh, Richard, can I say a couple?
Please.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bach. It's my husband Dell, the cameraman up there right now, and he's found a really great place here, and I don't know, and I'll talk even though he's getting me on camera right now, but it's not so great. But anyway, I just really want to thank Richard and Joni and David from afar, and our publisher, and also I thought Rita was going to make it by now. She should be over soon. Rita Dolly and David Manassi, the people who've been part of this.
We can recognize Ben Pensier, who's a member of our board of directors.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Welcome to everyone here, and I want to welcome you. I know we're going to have a little wine tasting outside. First of all, Richard suggested we have the wine tasting out in the courtyard, which is a lovely thing. So we're going to actually move out there to do that. And but I also want to bring up the fact that I want to welcome you here, and we are going to be having 3 more in the course of the year.
Yes.
Right? Tell me, yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
Joni, come up here and say a little bit, please.
It's a series.
This is a series, and this is the first of a series.
There's Rita.
Oh, there's Rita Dolly.
Please.
Okay. Let me just. I wanted to point out that these are 3 of Rita's paintings here, and they are wonderful, and we're so pleased that she brought them over here for the day. And they are part of the illustrations in this book. And there are pieces of these paintings in there, and I just want to, and actually,
And they're for sale.
and they're for sale.
We don't take the money and
Marvelous,
run.
but if you want to talk to Rita about the painting, she'll be glad to talk to you. Anyway, but Joni, if you want to say a little bit more about the other, we're going to have
Sure, we do have some
beginning of the series.
Okay.
And then, well, I was going to get there too. Yeah, right. But go ahead, Joni.
Just a few things I want to mention. These are actually 2 separate items. The first is that I'm working with Fran and Kristen and Dell to create a poetry series that we're going to have here about 4 times a year, once a season, called the Hidden Treasures Poetry Series, because it is the Courtyard Gallery is known as Mystic's Hidden Treasure, and I think a lot of the poets that we're going to be featuring as well are also some of Connecticut's hidden treasures.
That's wonderful.
Too. So
it's just
we kind
great.
of like that name.
Come over here. Can you get Joni in the camera?
She's
This is
in.
kind of
Okay.
kind of part of that, but this is primarily for the Meredith Foundation, so I certainly don't want to, steal any thunder. But Richard has some upcoming readings. Providence Center on the 19th.
The Providence Center on State Street. It's part of the the art walk, but they have kindly said that we can read some poems and show David's book there as well on the 19th.
So
May.
please join us on the 19th of May. If you're available, then please
Wonderful.
join us.
Great.
And there is some more information also, I think, in the back of some upcoming readings that Richard has planned. And Michael Lennard, can you raise your hand back there? This is the CEO of Little Red Tree Publishing and the man behind putting all of the formatting together for the
Right.
book. And he's the person that you want to talk to if you would like to purchase the books as well. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. And Richard, I'm going to turn this back over
Right.
to you.
Well,
if there's anything else.
we'll go there. The one
Okay.
thing that I wanted to tell everybody is if you're interested in getting, finding out about when our next poetry series is going to be,
Yes.
there's a guest book right at the back there. And I've written a page that says poetry, reading, blah, 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 this date. If you want to put your name and your email especially, it would be really useful.
I
And
think
then
so.
we can
Help
send an
marketing it,
e-blast
yes.
out.
Right.
And
Reminding
we'll also
everybody.
pass those
Yes.
on, if you don't mind, to Richard.
And the Meredith
And the
Foundation.
Meredith
Yes.
Foundation. And I wanted to make sure that you do that. Just write your name in the book on the way out. Actually, if we already have your name here at the Courtyard Gallery, please write it again so we can definitely, your name and your email, so we can definitely send you notices about the poetry.
Thank you.
Okay?